Greetings, traveler. Have you ever been in a situation when making a video game where you have a meeting or an event for everybody to play the game and give feedback, and you end up with 10 or more items that need to be worked upon? However, when you work on that game and you try to address all the items that came up on the feedback, 6 months after the feedback meeting, the game seems to have gone nowhere. So today, let's take a look at how this situation happens and what we can do about it. My name is Xanthos. I've been working in the games industry for over 13 years now, and I've been in these situations way too many times. We're working on a game, we get some feedback on it, we make a list out of all the items we need to work on, but somehow the months pass and the game's quality doesn't really improve. The issues that we said we would fix were not fixed, or they were fixed badly and they created even more issues. And even though all the tickets were closed and all the bugs were supposedly fixed, the game quality hasn't really improved as much as we imagined when we worked on these items. So let's talk about the hard mode first of dealing with the situation, and then we'll talk about the easy mode. So what's the hard way of going through this situation? So you have the list of, let's say, 10 items that you need to do to improve your game's overall gameplay, the way it looks, its sound, all of that stuff. And you rush in and you try to work on all 10 items at once. You create your list, you start prioritizing and say, from the 100 issues that came up, let's only work on these 10 most important issues. And then the game designers will go away and they will try to figure out gameplay solutions. Same for the engineers, same for the artists, and so on. Eventually, all this work is done, and all these fixed issues come together into the new build, and hopefully this will constitute the next version. Sometimes this doesn't happen, and instead of one next version, you have this in-between state of the game where some issues are fixed and some are still being worked on, and when somebody plays the game, they don't know if a fix for a particular problem is already in. It can be quite chaotic. That's why this is a hard mode. And anyway, even after this very complicated, very confusing and arduous process is done, when the team gets together to look at the game again, or even worse, when the game is released and players get to look at the game, they say, well, this game has so many issues. What about the gameplay? It's not fun. What about the graphics? They look janky. What about the sound? It doesn't seem to fit the situation. What about the dialogues? They feel unnatural. So when players see this, they think all these issues are so obvious. What have you guys been doing so far? Like, how could you release a game like this? But of course, the development team knows that there has been so many other issues that were worked on up until that point. So there was no time and, quite honestly, no budget left to work on all the remaining features. So the resulting situation of this way of handling all the game flaws unfortunately leaves us with even more game flaws and not that much better quality of a game, certainly not as good as we would have imagined starting to work on all these things. So why does this happen? It happens because we divide our attention so much between all these issues. We do a tremendous amount of context switching. There is no clear indication of which of these issues is most important. There is no data around it. We don't have a way to express in numbers how fixing each individual problem will result in a better quality for a game. There is no metric to measure it. And of course, this is considered natural because during development, we don't really have many KPI for the game, many metrics. We don't gather analytics for it because it's still in development, right? And without having data, making decisions like that is, of course, extremely difficult. So that is the situation for most developers, I feel. Certainly most games that are released, including ones that I've worked on myself, end up in this very strange and unfortunate situation when they're released. And it always leaves players wondering, just as much as developers, the team has been working on the game for so long. How could they leave these very big flaws in the game? So let's take a look at what we can do to improve the situation. In other words, what's the easy mode of dealing with this? So before I jump into a crazy explanation of all the things we can do better, I heard a quote recently that so perfectly summarizes what I'm about to say. So if you think of iPhone, right? So the iPhone got invented at some point in time, and what an iPhone essentially is a mobile phone with no flaws. What do I mean by that? Does the iPhone have no flaws? Of course not. Now there's all these other things that people would like iPhones to be able to do. But back in the day, think about the era before the iPhone was invented. Mobile phones were much harder to use. Their battery would run out much faster, their coverage was not as good. It would take a rather tech-savvy person to be able to go into the menu and customize all the features and make the phone work as they want. If you wanted to show someone how to use that phone, it would take a really long time if you wanted to do anything other than simple phone calls. And it was just a very difficult device to work with. So in order to make the iPhone, Apple just had a really hard look at the phone as a product, right? And they made a huge list of all the flaws that the mobile phones had. And what they did was make a list of all the things that were difficult about mobile phones, and they would have to to fix in order to get a really superior product compared to the status quo before. So how did they go about it? After making that huge list, they would have the connection to the metrics. So of course the metrics can be different for any situation, but some metrics that might make sense in this case is how much are people using it? How long do they use it per session? How many features out of all the features in the phone are actually used by the people? Stuff like that. So I don't know exactly what they used, but I imagine that looking at this type of KPI makes a lot of sense in this situation. So out of all the issues that people reported with normal mobile phones and eventually with the early versions of the iPhone itself before release, there was that huge list, right? And we can think of that huge list as the same list of flaws people find with our games, either team members or players who play it outside of the team. So here's the easy mode. Instead of jumping in and trying to solve everything at once, as hard and as counterintuitive as this might sound, only work on one thing. There might be 1,000 flaws. There might be all these open tickets and issues and all these crazy problems that people are reporting. That's fine. Definitely record these things, but only focus on one when thinking about what to do next. So the next question becomes, well, which one? We have a list of all these issues. Which one should we work on? This is where the data comes in. So you might think that one of the reported issues is really important to gameplay, so we should do that first. Or that's not really important. There's issues with the tutorial, and the tutorial is what people will see most of the time, so we should do that. There's all these opinions, and usually the opinions of the higher rank people in the team will take precedence. But I think it's a better practice, and I know it from my experience, to always have data to support this. So again, what sort of data and what makes most sense in any situation will vary. Only you know that working on your own project. But generally, if people are having fun with something, if it makes sense for them to use it, they use it more and they use more of its features. That's a pretty general way to look at these things. And of course, you can customize as you know your product better or your game. So after gathering the data, let's just go with playtime here for a simple example. So, and of course, you're supposed to track more than one KPI, right? It goes without saying. But for the sake of simplicity, let's just say we only track session playtime for this example. So you say that in the current version, people play the game for about 20 minutes on average, and then they drop the game even though they haven't completed the story, they haven't cleared all the content and so on. So this already gives you a very simple and intuitive way to measure whether you're doing better or worse. So of course you want to increase the time people can play the game without any annoyances, without any problems to break their immersion and their fun. So out of all the list of issues, you can make an educated guess, since everybody on the team is a game developer, right? And hopefully a gamer. You can make an educated guess about what will increase the playtime most out of all the things in the list of flaws. And then, this is where data becomes even more interesting. If you know exactly what makes, or what moment makes people drop the game, from the data you've collected, this can help you define the most important flaw of the game even easier, assuming you have that. So that just goes to show you how important data is and how easy it makes your work. So you work on one thing, only one, and then you see if that has any difference on the overall playtime of the player's session. This is a very easy environment to A/B test. If the new version makes people play more, win. If not, let's go back to the drawing board. So it's not that the approach to the solution is wrong. It might be something entirely different, but hopefully this method makes it very clear to see what it was that didn't work out, or which change specifically didn't work out to increase the playtime, and what you can test instead. Having a conversation from this point onward is a million times better than working on 50 game flows at once and then having another conversation, not tomorrow, but 6 months from now, when all the fixes are implemented in the game and we're still wondering if the game is in a good state or not. So the next question becomes, well, okay, that sounds good, but isn't it a waste of time to have the entire team work only on one feature when everybody's getting paid, they have so much free time? If we only work on one thing, we're throwing away all the money spent paying everybody's salaries. Well, this is a very logical and well-posed question, and I have made videos specifically about this, so I'm going to link it somewhere here. So please check that out and let me know what you think about focusing on only one thing at a time, making the team laser focused on just that one thing, and making sure we crack that before moving on. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for your time. Please let me know what you think about this method, and as always, have fun.